Hi Jim. I thought since you were interested in that picture I'd show you how I do it. And what it is, the way I make it happen is I have a power supply. I'm going to pick the camera up and show you these things as I'm talking about them. First, this is a capacitor. You'll see a bunch of these wired together. This is an electrolytic capacitor. It's 4700 microfarads and it's 35 volts. That's how many volts you can put in before it ruptures. Theoretically, you can probably put a little bit more, but not too much. You don't want it to blow up, that's for sure. What it is a couple layers of foil with an insulator between them, like wax paper, and I guess an insulator on each side, and it's rolled up into a tight spiral and put in a can. Now, the reason you do that is you put the negative charge on one layer of foil and a positive charge on the other, and the electrostatic force between the two will allow it to fill with electricity until it's saturated, until it's full, and then it just stops accepting electricity. So essentially you're storing voltage in this. Now, this is my shop, of course. It looks like a mess. It's not, it's just full. It's full of a little of everything. What I do here is I like to build things. Sometimes I just make them up, and other times I need something to make something else and I can't find it, so I just have to make it. This is more just for fun. This is a group of capacitors that I use. Let's see, what size are they? These are 15,000 microfarad 50 volt capacitors, and it's just a group of them. I think there's 11, I believe. Yeah, I needed one. It used to be 12, but I needed one. I think they're wired in parallel. Yeah, which means all the positives are wired together and all the negatives are wired together. When you do that, the voltage that they can store goes up. Even though I'm just putting 30 volts into it, I believe I could put more than that, but I haven't referenced that lately, so I don't remember. Anyway, this is a power supply, and I've charged them up already. I'll turn it on. Yeah, you may have seen that 2 appear. That meant a little bit of current went into this device here, and finished charging them. Now, let's see. Now I have the leads coming from the capacitors. I've just clipped a nail because it's got a nice point and it's a relatively soft metal, so it sprays better than say a carbon rod like this. I'll tell you about those in a minute. I'm just going to set the camera right here and take a look and make sure it's in view. Let's see, there we go, that's about right. Okay, now it's charged up. I'm going to disconnect one of the leads to the power supply since all the voltage is in the capacitors now. Now turn it on. Now, when I touch these two together, you'll see basically what caused the picture to happen. The difference, well, here, I'll show you. There we go. It welds these together. You have to break them apart. There. That's a small version. I had bigger bolts than these on here when I did the other, but essentially the same thing. It happens really fast, and you can't necessarily see. Here, I'll show you what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to plug the lead from the power supply down here in this connection, which is to the capacitors. And when I turn the switch on, you'll see a number appear here. That's the current going into the capacitors, and when it goes to 0, that means they're full, because they won't allow any more in. Okay, there you go. 2, 1, it's 100th of an amp, 0. Okay, so we have 30.2 volts in there. I'll turn it off. I've got an arc on that switch I got to take a look at. We'll do it one more time. Now, when I do this with the camera, the way I do it is in a dark room or outside at night, and I just open up the lens so it starts taking, so the light starts coming into the camera. And then when I touch these two together, that's basically a self-illuminating picture, because that's what lights the picture, and that's also what I'm taking a picture of. Whoops, I didn't turn it back on. There we go. We disconnect. Yeah, disconnect. Okay. There it is. You can kind of see them flying out, but they're a lot more dramatic. Welded the nails. So essentially, this is a tiny welder. If I had little things to weld, this would be a good thing to use. Now, these carbon rods are a little different. I'll show you what they do. It's more of a flame effect with these. Let's see. Where's the... Okay, there we go. Turn it on. Charge it up. See, at one point there was over 3 amps going into that, because this looks, the capacitors when they're empty look like a short circuit, but once they fill up they look like an open switch, the opposite. Okay, they're full. I want to turn it off, disconnect the power supply, turn it back on. Now, this is different. This is carbon instead of steel, so you don't have any hot bits flying away. You just have kind of a flame like that. Now, these carbon rods, just to let you know, actually I don't buy these as such. I buy batteries like this, and I'm trying to look at the screen and do this at the same time. There we go. There's the battery. It's just the cheapest kind of 6-volt battery, lantern battery you can buy. But when you've used up the electricity, then you take the top off, and there's 4 chambers in here, and each one has a carbon rod in it. And black gunk. It's kind of like black sawdust. I don't know. It's with a liquid. Anyway, it's pretty nasty. But you pull these things out, wash them off, and you got your electrodes for a carbon arc light, which I've built before. Other things, because they don't melt, they just burn. I've seen these things just get red hot all the way up and all the way down the connection in my carbon arc light. So anyway, don't ever buy carbon rods. Get a battery and get some juice out of it, and then you've got some. I'm sure you needed to hear that. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I think what I'm going to do is later on, possibly this evening, let me turn this around. Later on I might, what was that? I might do it in the dark and use a still camera to make exposures. So anyway, it just told me I have to charge the battery pack, so we're out of time. Anyway, if you have any questions, just give me a holler, and I'll show you something else if you want to see it. I've done just about everything that I'm capable of doing as a Reader's Digest degree in science will give you. That's basically the way I feel about my scientific education. You know, I discovered scientists are as much bookkeepers as they are researchers, and gosh, that really turned me off, because you got to record everything. And that's the part I don't like, so I wouldn't be much of a sinus. Anyway, it's more fun this way anyhow. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.